Good evening, everyone. Okay, welcome back to the Caro lecture. In the previous class, we have discussed the Caro defense from the black's perspective. Well, in today's class, we are going to see some lines as white. Okay, as you are familiar with the Finnish lines, Caro defense starts with e4, c6, d4, d5. Okay, it's a very solid defense for black, especially if you want to equalize or if you want to play for a draw. It's a perfect defense to play. And in order to gain advantage, there are some lines that white should know. Okay, after d5, there are three responses. The popular response, the advanced variation, which we have already covered. Okay, the classical variation with the move knight c3, and the it's also known as fantasy variation. It covers with the move a3 or f3. Okay, now let's start with the classical variation first. Okay. After knight c3, as you can see that black can't defend with knight f6 because of e5, and white gets a very strong edge. Okay, so we can't even defend with e6. This is bad because this bishop is very passive in the long run. So that's why the most popular move is to take, and after knight takes, let's see the first move, bishop f5. The classical variation is also known as. Okay. Against this, the main move is to play knight g3. We are counter-attacking the black bishop, bishop g6. Now, the theory recommends to play the move knight h3. Well, black should know how to play this position. The only move is to play knight d7. Let's see what happens if black plays the move e6. This is not a great move, and because it instructs with the move h4, and we are already threatening to almost trap the bishop. So let's say bishop here, then knight e5. We are attacking the bishop, and in this position, it's a very strong position for white. Bishop d3 is coming. Queen h5 is also a possible move in this line. Then let's say bishop here, then queen immediately queen h5, and bishop developing a bishop and a long castle is a very strong position. So that's why in order to deal with this position, black should know the only move is to play knight f6. Well, knight f6 is also not good because of the move, let's say, yeah, and the bishop is almost trapped. If bishop e5, then we take, and we are getting as a bishop pair early in the opening, which is slightly better for white. And if here, then if h6, then knight e5. Bishop here, then every move comes with a threat. Bishop c4, and it's a really bad position for black. This bishop is passive. Bishop e3, queen d2, queen f3 is also good in this line, and white gains a huge superiority over black. So after knight f3, the only move is to play for black is to play knight d7, just stopping knight e5, any knight intrusion. Okay, after knight d7, let's say h4, h6, bishop d3, takes, takes, e6, bishop f4, knight f6, and long castles. This is a very well-known position, and the game continues with knight d5, bishop d2, and if bishop d6 and c4 and king b1, and in the long run we are going to attack the black king because the black king is going to castle short in many such cases, and it's better for white because white just gains a huge attack. Okay, let's go back. Okay, that goes the classical variation. Okay, now let's talk about against after d5 the exchange variation. which is much less annoying to play. It's very flexible. Bishop d3. As you can see, we are playing against this dark square bishop. In the Caro, what happens is this bishop gets early activate on the f5 square. We are simply stopping that square by controlling that square with our bishop first. Okay, after bishop d3, as you can see, the dark square bishop doesn't have that square. So the only response is knight f6 or knight c6. There are two popular responses. It doesn't matter which move comes first. So let's go start with the knight c6. As you can see, the knight is apparently attacking the d4 pawn. So c3 makes sense. c3, knight f6. Well, we have to be careful. There's also one line that starts with bishop f4. The most popular line is to play h3. As you can see, if we had played the move knight f3, then we had invited this bishop g4 pin. This is not. This bishop gets a very nice square, and black could then play e6 and then equalize. So we are simply covering that square with the move h3. Okay, now playing e6 is bad. If black knows what he's doing, then he should play the move e5. After takes and queen e2 and queen e7. Well, don't play knight f3 because it just blunders the bishop. If you play knight f3 and knight takes d3 is just horrible. Don't make this kind of blunders. Okay, after queen e7, the game continues with bishop c2. As you can see, that black is currently zugzwang in this line. The queen is stuck in this e7 square. As long as the queen stays here, the bishop can't be developed. And the bishop, this also doesn't have that many great squares. The only passive square is to play bishop d7, just activating one square. Okay, and bishop e6 is also not working because we just like this blundered this line. So after let's say bishop d7 or the main move is to play knight c6, we could just exchange the queens or we could just play the move bishop e3. As you can see, we are playing against this isolated pawn. The d5 pawn is weak, and controlling that square makes a lot of sense. So exchanging queens does favor white, but covering that square also knight f3 is coming. Knight b2 to knight b3 is also a possible move. That just covering that d4 square. Let's say bishop e6, knight f3. Uh, let's say queen c7, knight bd2. We are going to stick one of our knight on the d4 square. And in the long run, the d4 pawn is soon going to fall and we'll just be a pawn up in this line. If white knows how to deal with an isolated IQP structure. Okay, that covers the exchange variation. There's also one line that the exchange line that after knight is h3, e5 takes, queen e2. There's also one line that starts with the knight e4. Uh, I'm not sure. Magnus Carlsen versus Richard Rapport was the game was played in this line, and Magnus was white in this line. Magnus got crushed in this line as white in this line. After knight e4, mm, taking is not that good because after let's say bishop d6 castling, the rook is going to the white's king is in the still in the center. So after let's say takes, takes and then takes, this is not that great because of bishop d6 and with f4. And it's simply white black. He's simply castle. And after this and rook e8, it's a lot of attack that black is getting in this hand. Also, this check is also coming. It wants the queen moves. So this is a very risky line. So taking is not that great. After knight e4, if f3 is bad because of this check. It's just too much. Okay, that's why knight e4 is also a popular line. Sorry. After knight e4, I think the best move is to calmly retreat the bishop to c2. This bishop is going to be very useful in the run. So let's just preserve this bishop. And let's say bishop d6, then simply knight f3. We are simply attacking castling. And remember, in the long run, this pawn is weak. So we don't have to go crazy in this line and then give win some pawns or we can weak our king. This pawn is soon going to fall, and we are going to be a pawn. So that's why staying calm is the best way to deal with such positions. Okay, so that covers the exchange variation. Okay, the d4, d5. Okay. Now let's talk about the fantasy variation, which is a very tricky line if white knows how to deal with such positions. Okay, after d5, the fantasy variation starts with the weird looking move f3. You may wonder at some point that what is this pawn doing on my f3 square, weakening our king on this diagonal? But it makes a lot of sense because we are bolstering our center, solidifying our center. And if black takes, then we are happy to take. And if let's say e5, the game continues with the theory. Remember not to take this pawn. This is not a free pawn because of not exchanging the queens because of this check, and it's bad. In fact, white is just lost in this line. So the only logic way is to play king d2 if you don't want to lose anything. And playing g3 is worse because of this. So that's why e5 against e5. Okay, the game continues with knight f3, bishop g4, and bishop c4. As you can see, black has to be very careful in it. After bishop c4, the only move is to play knight d7 because knight f6 loses on the spot because of this tactics. Knight takes c4. We simply gain the pawn with a lot of initiative. Okay, so the only move is to play knight d7 after bishop c4, knight d7, knight b d7. Okay, knight b d7, and white simply castles. After knight f6, we simply play the move c3. And the c3 is a very venomous move. We have a lot of attacking ideas. Let's say black could go wrong in this line and play, if black plays the move bishop d6, queen b3 is just too much. It's just very bad for black. Black has to give us something this time. So after let's say knight, I'm not sure how to deal with such positions. Black could for knight f6, let's say c3. King is bad because of e5, and we are getting a lot of initiative in this time. Queen, knight x, I'm not sure. Let's say yeah, knight g5 is also coming tactics, some sort of tactics. If knight takes e5, then rook e1, rook e1, and e takes d5, c takes d4 is coming. If sorry, if knight takes e5, then and this is coming. And if not, then we are going to win the knight with bishop d6. But I'm not sure if c takes d4 is winning. If bishop takes here, then queen takes. This is winning. Knight takes e5 is just bad, really bad. Opening up the e5 for the. That's why e5 is a very dangerous move to deal with. The idea behind the e5 move is to stop bishop d6. And if bishop tries to be develop on the c5, then c takes d4. We are getting a tempo. And if bishop c5, then yeah, this is good. If bishop b4, then queen d3. So the bishop has to go here. Yeah, and black uses this line. Bishop b6, then this is winning. Okay. Okay, against there's also one line that starts after let's say e5. No, after let's say here. Yeah, and takes after e5, knight f3, pawn takes d4. This is also another line. Against this, simply knight takes d4. Yeah, And after, let's say, knight f6, reverse Sicilian. Um, Remember not to play the move e5. Do not push e5 because of this tactics and this. You lose the pawn. Check, and no matter how you cover, you lose the pawn. Okay. So let's say uh, knight c3. Mm, Bishop b4 or bishop c5 it matters. There are two popular response. Knight b3 or let's say bishop e3 is also good. Bishop e3 is the more popular move. There are all sorts of tactics like knight e6 in the long run. Okay, again, let's say bishop g4, queen d2, and we are simply going to keep the bishop with h3 and g4. We are going to castle long and attack the black's king with rook g1 and then storming on the king side. Let's say knight d7, h3, bishop here, g4, bishop g6, long castle. Or we could just castle or could play the continue with the move bishop c4. Bishop c4 does invite immediately the move b5. I think castling is the best choice. Okay, and black is currently stuck here because black is not sure which side to castle. Because if black does castle queen king side, then this pawn storm is coming. Of course, the first will defend the pawn, e4 pawn with bishop d3. Let's say castling, then bishop d3, and the attack is just ongoing. H4, h5. Okay. Yeah, 95, then knight f5. Bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop. Bishop takes, queen takes, and if knight takes, this is not that good because we are attacking the queen. Who it's not that good for e5 is also coming at some point. Also, this is also a possibility. So let's say queen f3 and then h4 h5, trapping the bishop. Black has to give up his bishop at some point for the knight. At, at that point, we are going to capture with the g and open up the rook file. This is a hell of an attack. Okay, so it's a good position for white. আচ্ছা। Next position থেকে দেখাচ্ছি। Okay, that covers the fantasy variation. Okay, now let's talk about the fan of attack. E takes d5. It starts with the move exchanging. And it starts with the move c4. Okay, after c4, let's see the worst choice that black has is to take. Taking is bad. Yeah, we do have a isolate IQP structure. This pawn is an isolated pawn, but because of this pawn, our e5 square and the c5 square is currently occupied, and this is a very good position, especially if white knows how to deal with such positions. Okay, let's see knight c6, bishop e3. Remember not to play knight f3 because it invites the move bishop g4, and you could play the move bishop here, but of course there is one tactics in this line. Bishop takes f7, king takes away, and then knight g5. But in the end, the d4 pawn is also gone. Black's king does look weak, but remember that black could just take. I'm not sure what just white gained in this position. Okay. So that's why this tactics doesn't work. The only best move that is to play bishop e3. This is defending the pawn. And after let's say knight f6 and knight c3, and if black tries to develop the bishop to the f5 square, this is just bad because of queen b3. It's a fork. the worst form of the position. So queen b3, the game is ultimately lost in this position. And after, let's say, knight f5, bishop takes f7, this is bad. And yeah, this check is also good. Next, knight c6, d6 then d5. Yeah, and knight f3 to knight e5 is also coming at some point. The black king is going to get toasted in this line. So developing this bishop is just premature. Bishop f5. Okay. Best. I think the best choice is to play the move bishop g4. Against bishop g4, this is also works. Queen b3 also works in this line. Developing his bishop is always bad, and if not, then black has to deal with his passive bishops with the move e6. I think that this is perhaps the best choice that black has. Developing your bishop always ends up in trouble. Okay, after e6, as you can see, this bishop is just forever going to be passive. Knight h3, and at some point we could play break with the move d5 and get rid of this IQP structure. And after, let's say, both sides castles, the game continues with d5. We are going to get rid of this IQP structure. And after takes, and bishop takes. Remember, we are going to take this knight and ruin black's king queen side structure. So it's not sure that where this knight is going to go, or bishop d7. We could just play, and then let's say queen e2, getting the rooks here. It's just great position. Queen b3, knight a5. I'm not sure about this guy. The queen has to go at some point with the d3 square, and then let's say bishop e6. Yeah, this it's not that great. This bishop is pinned because the queen is independent. So that's why I think the best move is like queen e2 and then getting the rooks, the d and c5. This gives white pleasant position. Slightly better position. A point 0.5 advantage. The game is equal. This is how black should play in this line in order to equalize the game. Okay. White is slightly better in this line. Okay, so developing your bishop early always black ends up in trouble. So the more popular line is to play knight f6. Taking is his bad. D takes c2, releasing the tension early in the opening. After knight f6 and knight c3, and let's say takes, and many players have fallen for this bishop f5. This invites the queen b3. It's a very popular trap against the panic attack. Whenever black does develop his bishop, always remember this queen b3 move. It's a killer move, and I'm not sure that how black is. Let's say queen d7, then this is just we are just getting a pawn. Bishop takes in here and then knight f3. Knight e5 is coming. If knight c6, then d5. We are going to just crush our opponent in this line. Knight e5 is just unstoppable. Knight e5, bishop f4. Okay, it's already plus over minus. Plus 3.4. 3.8. It's completely winning. Oh my. Okay. So, sorry. After c4, the Panabata is more a tactical variation for white. Okay, yeah. So after c4, knight f6, and let's say knight c3, knight c6, and knight f3, we could just take and or play the move if bishop here, then queen b3. Yeah, bishop f5, then queen d3. And if let's say d takes c4, then queen takes b7. Sorry, queen takes b7. Or taking the c4 pawn is also great. I think taking the c4 pawn would be better in this time. Bishop takes c4. Knight a5, bishop check. Yeah, bishop blocks, and then bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes. Okay, sorry. Hmm? Yeah, but then our bishop is getting trapped. Yeah. No, knight a5 bishop take. We could just take, yeah, in d7 and knight e5 check is also great. This time. You don't want to play this position. The king is just marching towards the queen side. Not sure where it should go. It's just bad. Queen, queen a4 check. Knight c6. Knight c6 also does invite the move d5. Yeah, just invites the move d5 and simply king c8. Simply king c8. But the black king is just horribly placed in this fact. In the long run, we are going to develop our bishop f4, rook on, castling short, and I don't have to tell you that it's completely winning for white. Okay. There goes the pan of attack. Okay. After d4, d5, uh, there's also one line after exchanging knight f3 and let's say knight c6, bishop b5, and knight f6. This line also gives simplifying the center and let's say knight f6, white castles, and the game goes on. Okay, after let's say d4 and then d6. So there is also a two knights attack in the Caro e4 c6, knight f3, d5, and then knight c3. This is also known as the two knights attack. After let's say the most popular choice is to take, and bishop f5, the knight g3, bishop g6, h4. As you can see, our main goal is to just trap the bishop with the move h5. So say let's see h6 or h5. If h5, then it's a very well-known line with knight e5, and we are simply threatening to take the bishop and ruin black's kingside pawn structure. If bishop here, then simply queen takes. This is bad for black. Okay, knight f6, knight h6. Okay, against knight h6, I think bishop c4. At some point, black has to commit the move e6 and block this pawn, block this diagonal. And after e6, let's say huh? Knight and f5. Knight f5. It's bishop takes f5. Okay. Oh, knight h6 is not a good move. So that's why against after h4 and let's say h6 is the most popular move. So that white doesn't get this h5 pawn early. Okay. Against this 95 is still coming. And after here, let's say we could just throw in this move. Bishop c5, c4, e6, queen f3 or queen h5 is also good. And black has to play queen c7 or queen e7. to cover. Remember, bishop g6 is not that great because it's just simply knight takes g6. And if not, then how is black going to deal with such position? Let's say c7, d4, bishop f4 is in the air, and let's say knight f6, queen f3. As you can see, whites are very aggressively placed. Bishop f4, long castling, and it's just a great position. Bishop d6, then simply bishop f4. And we are going to castle long and place our rooks in the center. And this is a very funny trap. The game goes on with, let's say, knight b d7. I think the game continues with long castling. If I'm not sure, your knight takes, pawn takes, uh, bishop takes, queen takes, and then yeah, this is a very aggressive position. Yeah, it's black is just with their better this time, queen c5, and it does look a bit scary, but playing it from the as a human's perspective is very difficult. Especially the rooks are on the open file. Engine is giving a minus 1.5. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, after sorry. Okay, after bishop d6 and bishop f4, and let's say knight d7, we could just take knight d7. And if bishop takes f4, then this is this takes, and then e2, knight e2, and then we are going to win our pawn with, let's say, once the bishop moves, then queen takes f6. And the game is equal. Queen f5 check, and the game continues. Let's say c3. At some point, black has to move the bishop, and then queen takes f6. Slightly better pawn. Right. Okay, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed today's class. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.